AITA for refusing to step down as a bridesmaid because of my boyfriend's ultimatum. I'm a 26-year-old woman who has always tried to balance my relationships and family commitments as best as I can. 11 months ago, I started dating Tommy, a caring and kind 27-year-old man who, until recently, I truly believed understood me. We were slowly building something beautiful, a bond filled with laughter, shared dreams, and a future that seemed bright. Yet, over the last few weeks, something shifted dramatically. My family is incredibly important to me. I'm the younger sister of Kimmy, who is 31. Ever since we were little, Kimmy and I have shared a deep bond, a friendship that transcends sibling rivalry and has evolved into mutual admiration. So when Kimmy announced her engagement, I was overjoyed. I was honored when she asked me to be one of her bridesmaids at her small, intimate wedding scheduled in 3 months. Now, here's where things get complicated. My ex-boyfriend, Levi, is somehow entangled in the wedding plans. Levi and I dated from freshman year of high school through college, and though we ended things 2 years ago, we remain on good terms. He was my first love, and his family practically became a second family to me. I have known him since I was 6 years old. Growing up together, we shared countless memories and experiences that I'll cherish forever. Even after our breakup, which was mutual and amicable, I found it hard to completely sever the bond with someone who had been a part of my entire upbringing. Levi's current girlfriend, Tammy, is 24 years old and, as far as I know, has never had an issue with our past or the fact that Levi and I were once deeply involved. In fact, Tammy has been gracious and understanding, and she's assured me that she's comfortable with the situation. I even reduced my visits to Levi's family events out of respect for Tammy's feelings. Long before Tommy came into the picture, my connection with Levi was never romantic again after we split up. Over time, I accepted that he was an important part of my life in a different capacity, more like a lifelong friend, someone who knew me inside and out. Our families, overlapping through years of shared gatherings and celebrations, always treated me like one of their own. It felt natural, even when our romantic relationship ended, to continue participating in family events with Levi's extended family. But as I became more involved with Tommy, I started noticing a subtle change in my own internal conflict. I felt the pull between honoring my past and protecting my present relationship. Kimmy's wedding was set to be a small, warm gathering with only our closest friends and family. The guest list was intentionally intimate, and every role was chosen with care. I was thrilled when I was asked to be one of her bridesmaids. It felt like I was truly playing a special part in a once-in-a-lifetime event for my sister. I started planning for months, choosing the perfect dress, brainstorming ideas with Kimmy, and dreaming of a beautiful day filled with laughter, happy tears, and unforgettable memories. Here's where it gets even more tangled. Levi was also chosen to be a groomsman. In a twist of fate, the wedding planner decided that the processional pairs would include both bridesmaids and groomsmen walking together. This meant that despite the lingering awkwardness and unspoken history between Levi and me, we would be paired up to walk down the aisle. Initially, I was a bit unsettled by the idea. The mere thought of standing side by side with someone who used to be my boyfriend, someone whose presence still evoked mixed emotions, made my heart race with anxiety. But then I reminded myself that this day was about my sister. Kimmy's happiness outweighed all my personal discomfort, so I decided to put my feelings aside and focus on being the supportive, loving sister she needed. I spent countless hours rehearsing my part, trying to push away the nagging worry that every step I took down the aisle would somehow be a reminder of a past I'd long outgrown. I even confided in a few close friends about my apprehensions, and many assured me that sometimes the past doesn't have to interfere with the present if we let it be. I wanted to believe that too. Then the unthinkable happened. One evening, as Tommy and I were wrapping up a quiet dinner at home, he dropped what I can only describe as an explosive ultimatum on me. With his voice rising and eyes blazing, he demanded that I either step down as a bridesmaid, attend the wedding as a mere guest, or not go at all. His logic was simple in his mind. Since Levi, who happens to be my ex and the person I once deeply cared for, would be my processional partner, there was too much potential for misinterpretation, too much room for doubt, and, in his eyes, a threat to the sanctity of our relationship. Tommy's anger wasn't just a quiet simmer. It was an eruption. I remember his face turning red with fury, his words sharp enough to cut through the atmosphere of our home. He accused me of harboring secret feelings, of wanting to rekindle something with Levi. In his mind, my decision to remain a bridesmaid was proof of some hidden betrayal. I tried to explain, over and over, that my intentions were solely about supporting my sister on her special day, and that my relationship with Levi was nothing more than a fond, albeit complicated, chapter of my life. But nothing I said could temper the storm raging inside him. It wasn't just verbal abuse. In a moment of blind anger, Tommy broke some of my personal belongings, a symbol perhaps of how he felt about my commitment to both my family and, inadvertently to my past. I was devastated. Not only was I being asked to sacrifice a part of who I am for someone who was supposed to love me unconditionally, but I was also witnessing the first real outburst that left me questioning whether this was a side of Tommy I had never seen before. I pleaded with him to see reason. I reminded him of all the times I had shown him nothing but loyalty and love. I told him that my connection with Levi was strictly platonic and that nothing had changed in that regard. But every word seemed to fall on deaf ears. His ultimatum was non-negotiable, and his actions left me with a heavy heart and a mind full of doubts about what the future of our relationship held. After that heated confrontation, everything unraveled quickly. Tommy stormed out of our home, leaving me alone with shattered pieces of my belongings and a broken heart. His friend later messaged me, saying that Tommy didn't want to see or speak to me until he calmed down. I tried to reach out, texts, calls, even messages left on his voicemail, but nothing worked. The man I thought I knew had now become a stranger, filled with anger and hurt. The news spread fast. It wasn't long before word reached Levi. In a surprisingly selfless move, Levi offered to step down as a groomsman in an attempt to defuse the situation. He even told me that he understood the sensitive dynamics at play and that he didn't want to be the cause of any further discord, especially on a day that was meant to be joyful for Kimmy. I was deeply touched by his gesture. In many ways, it underscored that our relationship was indeed strictly platonic and that he valued our history but was fully committed to respecting the present. But I couldn't accept his offer. I told him, "No, I don't want you to step down." It was important to me that he remain a part of the wedding, not as an emotional crutch, but as a reminder that life doesn't always neatly separate past from present. I needed to honor the history that had shaped me, even as I embraced a future that belonged to Tommy and me. After all, this wedding wasn't about revisiting old flames. It was about celebrating love, family, and the unbreakable bond between sisters. Soon, my family became aware of the entire debacle. Levi had spoken to Gray, the groom-to-be, and the details of the argument reached my parents. I could feel their disappointment and anger through every call and every concern message. Kimmy, who had always been my rock, was particularly vocal. She told me she was disgusted by how Tommy had treated me, and she expressed her deep dismay that someone who claimed to love me could resort to such drastic measures. I was caught in the middle of a war zone. On one side was my sister's wedding, a once-in-a-lifetime event that I had always dreamed of being a part of. And on the other side was Tommy, the man I thought I loved, whose anger and ultimatums were now driving a wedge between us. My heart ached as I tried to reconcile these conflicting emotions. I didn't want to hurt Tommy, but I also couldn't bear the thought of missing my sister's big day or erasing a significant part of my past that had helped shape who I am today. Since that night, I've been drowning in a whirlwind of emotions. I'm overwhelmed by sadness, confusion, and a deep sense of loss. Not just for the wedding day I've been looking forward to, but for the trust and stability I once felt in my relationship with Tommy. Every time I think about the upcoming wedding, my mind races with images of walking down the aisle, laughing with my sister, and sharing a special moment with a person who was once an integral part of my life. Now, that image is tainted by the shadow of Tommy's ultimatum. I find myself lying awake at night, questioning everything. How did our once happy relationship deteriorate into something so bitter? When did the lines between my past and present become so blurred that Tommy couldn't accept that part of my history? I keep replaying our argument over and over, desperately searching for clues or a moment where maybe I could have done something differently. But every time, the reality stings just as much as the first time I experienced it. I'm also tormented by the guilt of feeling torn between the people I love. I love Tommy, and I've tried so hard to make him feel secure in our relationship. Yet, here I am, standing at a crossroads where I must choose between him and the role I cherish in my sister's life. It's as if I'm being forced to rewrite my identity, either as a supportive sister honoring her past, or as a devoted partner prioritizing a future that now seems so uncertain. My family's reaction has added another layer of complexity to my feelings. I know they're angry with Tommy, and a part of me is relieved by their support. But at the same time, I can't help but worry that their condemnation might blind me to the possibility of reconciliation. Tommy has been nothing but loving and supportive in the past, and the drastic shift in his behavior leaves me wondering if there's something more going on beneath the surface, something that I might be too blind to see because I care so much about him. At times, I've even questioned whether Tommy's behavior is an overreaction to the situation or if it's a red flag of deeper issues in our relationship. His violent outburst, breaking my things, shouting names, feels completely out of character. I'm trying to rationalize it, telling myself that stress and jealousy might have pushed him over the edge, but deep down, I fear this might be the beginning of a pattern. I keep asking myself, am I ignoring warning signs because I love him so much? This internal battle leaves me feeling isolated, as if I'm trapped between loyalty to a man I thought I knew and the undeniable truth of my own feelings. Since that fateful night, our lives have been on a collision course. Tommy's refusal to speak to me has created an atmosphere of tension in every aspect of my daily life. I see him less, I worry about him constantly, and I'm haunted by the possibility that this incident might be a turning point in our relationship, a point of no return. Family gatherings have become minefields. Every call from my parents brings up more questions about what happened, and every conversation with Kimmy is filled with a mix of support and dismay. Even my friends have weighed in, urging me to reconsider my stance and think about the bigger picture. Some say that by refusing to step down as a bridesmaid, I'm essentially prioritizing my past over my present relationship. Others argue that Tommy's ultimatum is unreasonable, controlling, and that I deserve to honor my commitments without being forced to sacrifice an important part of my identity. I feel as though I'm being pulled in two directions, each with its own set of consequences. On one hand, there's the weight of familial obligation and the promise I made to my sister. On the other, there's the possibility of a relationship that might have once seemed perfect but is now marred by insecurity and explosive anger. I'm caught in this no-win situation, and every decision feels like it could shatter another piece of my heart. The wedding looms closer every day. As I help Kimmy with the final details, from flower arrangements to seating charts, I'm painfully aware of the irony that my once clear path to happiness is now clouded by controversy. I've tried to compartmentalize my feelings, to focus on the joyous occasion that the wedding should be, but every time I see Levi's invitation or think about the processional pairing, a deep sense of dread fills me. I'm scared of what the wedding day might look like if Tommy's absence is glaring, if his anger leaves an unspoken tension that none of us can ignore. Even Levi, despite his best efforts to remain neutral and supportive, has become a constant reminder of the fault lines in my life. I see him at mutual gatherings, exchange a few polite words, and then we drift apart as if the past is a fragile relic too precious to disturb. His decision to not step down as a groomsman has been reaffirming for me. It's like he's silently saying that our history is just that, history. But every time I catch a fleeting, empathetic look in his eyes, I wonder if he, too, is hurt by the current state of affairs. The complexity of our relationship now feels like an intricate dance where every step is laden with unspoken emotion and regret. In the weeks following the confrontation, I've tried to piece together my shattered world. I've spent hours journaling, trying to understand where things went wrong and if there was ever a chance to mend what's been broken. I've spoken to close friends who have known me for years, and their advice, though well-intentioned, only deepens my confusion. They tell me I need to stand my ground and honor my commitments. After all, this wedding is once in a lifetime. But at the same time, they express worry over Tommy's explosive reaction and whether it might be the precursor to something darker in our relationship. I can't help but feel a deep sense of loneliness. The person I thought would be my partner in life is now a stranger locked away in anger, and I'm left to navigate the aftermath alone. Every morning, I wake up hoping for a call from Tommy, a sign that he's willing to talk and that there's a chance for healing. Yet, each day passes without any word from him, leaving me to wonder if reconciliation is even possible. There's also the heavy burden of guilt. I'm torn between two worlds, my past that includes cherished memories with Levi and the present that was supposed to be built with Tommy. I feel as though I'm betraying one side or the other no matter what I do. My heart aches every time I think that my decision might be causing irreparable damage. Am I being selfish and holding on to what I believe is right for my family? Or am I sacrificing my chance at a peaceful relationship by clinging to a role that seems to embody my past? I've been trying to communicate with Tommy, sending messages that are full of apologies for any pain I may have caused and explanations of my intentions. But every message seems to fall into a void, unanswered and heavy with unspoken accusations. I'm constantly on edge, worrying that the next conversation might be the one that ends everything for good. I miss the warmth of our connection, the gentle reassurances that we once shared. Now, all I have are memories of happier times and a lingering fear that this conflict might be the beginning of the end. Looking forward, I'm left with a profound sense of uncertainty. Kimmy's wedding is fast approaching, and while I desperately want to be there for my sister, I can't shake the fear that every smile and every step down the aisle will be overshadowed by the void left by Tommy's absence. I'm trying to prepare myself for that day, telling myself that it's about celebrating love and family. But underneath that, a part of me is grieving for the future I had imagined with Tommy. A future where our differences were resolved with communication and understanding, not ultimatums and shattered trust. I'm also worried about the long-term implications of this incident. If Tommy continues to withdraw and refuse to talk, where will that leave us? Is this a momentary lapse in judgment born out of jealousy and stress? Or is it a sign of deeper issues that we're not addressing? I find myself asking if I'm capable of changing his mind or if I'm destined to watch our relationship crumble piece by piece. The thought of having to choose between the woman I've always been, a loving sister who values her family and history, and the partner I hope to build a future with is agonizing. Every conversation with friends and family now seems to come with a side of judgment. Some insist that I should prioritize Tommy and try harder to mend our bond, while others reassure me that my stance is justified and that I shouldn't have to compromise my identity for someone who refuses to accept it. I'm caught in the middle of these conflicting voices, each one echoing in my mind and deepening the internal struggle. I've spent countless hours reflecting on what love really means. Is love supposed to come with ultimatums? Should I be forced to choose between my past and my present? I've always believed that a healthy relationship should embrace all facets of a person, including their history, without resorting to control or coercion. Tommy's demand that I sacrifice an important part of who I am feels less like a compromise and more like an erasure of my identity. There were moments when I thought perhaps I was being insensitive to his feelings. Maybe he felt threatened by the memory of Levi, even if that threat was imagined rather than real. But then I remind myself that my love for Tommy has always been built on trust and respect. I have never given him any reason to doubt my loyalty. I've done everything in my power to ensure that my past remains just that, a part of my history that informs me, but doesn't define my present. So why now, in the face of a joyful celebration like Kimmy's wedding, is he so consumed by jealousy and fear? I realize that love, in its truest form, should allow for the coexistence of one's past and present without forcing painful choices. It's about understanding, acceptance, and the willingness to trust one another even when old wounds threaten to resurface. In my heart, I believe that Tommy's reaction is less about me and more about his own unresolved insecurities. Yet, that doesn't make his actions any less hurtful or justifiable. I'm left to wonder if our relationship was ever as solid as I thought, or if these issues were lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. Now, as I write this post, I feel a mix of determination and sorrow. Determination because I've decided that I will not be forced to erase an important part of my life, my role as a loving sister and a person who values her past, just to appease someone else's fears. Sorrow because the cost of that decision seems to be the gradual disintegration of a relationship that once brought so much joy and promise. I'm trying to hold on to the hope that Tommy will eventually see reason, that he will reach out and let me in, and that we can work through this turbulent time together. But the longer the silence stretches between us, the more I worry that our foundation has been irreparably damaged. I'm aware that this post might paint me as the insensitive one, as someone who's disregarded the feelings of the person who claims to love me. But I ask you all, am I really the asshole for wanting to honor my commitments and for refusing to let someone's jealousy dictate the course of my life? I'm not denying that relationships require compromise, and I'm not saying that I'm unwilling to work on the issues with Tommy. However, I firmly believe that true love does not demand that you sacrifice an integral part of who you are. I owe it to myself, to my family, and to the future I envision to stand by my principles, even if it means facing painful consequences now. So, here I am, reaching out to the Reddit community with a heavy heart and a troubled mind. I'm torn between the desire to keep Tommy in my life and the need to remain true to myself and my family. My friends and family have largely sided with me. They say that I'm not the asshole, that I deserve to be at my sister's wedding in the role that makes me feel whole, and that Tommy's reaction was disproportionate and unacceptable. Yet, a part of me is still desperate to find a way to bridge the chasm that now separates us. I keep asking myself, am I being selfish by refusing to step down as a bridesmaid? Is it possible that my insistence on maintaining my role at the wedding is inadvertently pushing Tommy further away? Should I have been more sensitive to his feelings, even if they seem irrational to me now? Or is Tommy's reaction a manifestation of deeper insecurities that I should not have to bear the brunt of? I'm also haunted by the fear that this situation might permanently alter how I'm perceived, not just by Tommy, but by my entire circle of friends and family. The wedding, which should be a day of celebration, now feels like a battleground where my loyalty, my history, and my future are being questioned and dissected. In the midst of all this chaos, I still hold on to the hope that things might eventually get better. I dream of a day when Tommy and I can sit down, talk honestly about our fears and insecurities, and work through the pain together. I long for the time when our love can overcome the misunderstandings that have driven us apart, and when I can once again feel that warm connection that we once shared so effortlessly. At the same time, I'm terrified of what might happen if nothing changes. If Tommy's silence continues, if the anger festers, and if our relationship crumbles, then I'll have to live with the heavy regret of having lost someone who was once my entire world. The thought of being alone, of not having that special person to share life's moments with is almost as painful as the conflict itself. And yet, I can't help but feel that compromising on something so important to me, my role in my sister's wedding, my identity, would be a betrayal of everything I stand for. It's as if I'm caught in a tragic play where every decision leads to more heartbreak, where the very people who are supposed to love you unconditionally turn into adversaries when fears and insecurities take hold. I want to believe in forgiveness and healing and in the possibility that this storm will pass. But the echoes of that fateful night, the sound of shattered glass and harsh words, continue to haunt me, making it hard to see a clear path forward. I'm posting here not just for advice, but also as a way to process my own tangled emotions. I understand that relationships are never black and white, and that sometimes the right decision isn't immediately clear. I know that compromise is essential in any loving relationship, but I also believe that compromising on one's identity is a dangerous road to travel. I refuse to let anyone, no matter how close they are to me, dictate what parts of my past I should erase in order to pave the way for a smoother future. Tommy's ultimatum has forced me to confront some very hard truths about love, trust, and self-respect. I'm not sure what the future holds for us. I'm not sure if Tommy will come around, or if our relationship can survive this turbulent period. But I do know that I have to be true to myself and to the commitments I've made to my family and my own identity. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to step down as a bridesmaid because of my boyfriend's ultimatum?